So I like to start with a joke, and I'm not a natural joke teller, so I'm going to really have to concentrate on this. So, a husband and a wife were sitting at home one evening, and the telephone rings. The husband gets up, answers the phone, speaks for a few minutes, and then hangs up. The wife walks into the kitchen, grabs one of those big iron skillets, and goes and whacks him upside the head. And he looks at her and said, "Now, what was that for?" And she said, "I heard you talking to a woman named Sally." And he said, "Honey, you have it all wrong. I just bet $20 on Sally in the third race." She felt so bad, she made him his favorite meal for the next week. A week passes, the phone rings again. This time the wife picks up the phone and talks for a moment. She hangs up the phone. She goes right back in the kitchen, grabs that iron skillet, and whacks him again. And once he gets up off the floor, he says, "Now what was that for?" And she said, "Your horse just called." Okay. So, tell me if you recognize this. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and it has made all the difference. That quote by Robert Frost is pretty much the essence of what I'd like to speak with you about today. The one road is our comfort zone. It's the road of peace, inactivity, and stagnancy. The other is the road where growth occurs. The road with risk, the road with bumps, and the road with the greatest rewards. Today I want to convince you to move out of your comfort zone and shake things up like the song, The Cars, that we just played. So you've heard the words from the 1976 movie Network, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Well, the words by themselves do little. You have to put action behind your words and really shake things up. Because if you simply stay in your comfort zone, you'll never know how far you could have gone or what you could have become. You have to wake up, step it up, and shake things up. You need to put on your big girl panties or your big boy boxers, whatever the case may be, and you need to dare to ask for a raise, or dare to tell someone that you're not going to participate in a certain behavior anymore, or dare to walk away from a relationship that is not serving you anymore, that is not offering you a passion-filled life. You need to quit that job, to quit that relationship if it's not serving you. You need to start your own passion-filled tomorrow. And I want to tell you a story about someone who's here today, and perhaps some of you will guess who I'm speaking of, and perhaps not. There was a very successful realtor over in Franklin. And some years back, earlier in her life, she had had some challenges. And she moved through those challenges with a lot of help, but she did move through them. And one day, she realized that while she was successful and had a lot of prosperity in her job as a realtor, it wasn't giving her the fulfillment. It wasn't a way of life that she wanted to continue. It wasn't giving her that passion-filled tomorrow that I talked about. And so she left that job. She returned to school full-time to finish her bachelor's degree. And this month, she graduated with her master's of social work. And as soon as she finishes her internship, she will be counseling people with similar situations. And so I'm talking about Judy, and Judy did give me permission to share her story. So this is what I'm talking about. Do you think it was comfortable for her to just quit a job in which she was making good money? I mean, she is a single woman. She doesn't have another person to help support her. This was a big leap of faith, and it was definitely not only moving out of her comfort zone, but jumping out of it. So if you don't do it for yourself, who will? Every one of us can come up with excuses of why we can't have our dreams. Stop your excuses. Stop saying, what if I do this and nothing happens? Well, what if you do this and something does happen? If you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. Often we decide to stay in our comfort zone because we're afraid of what might be on the other side. And fear is a really powerful thing. You know, I was thinking about people in history, and someone who really shook things up. Jesus. Pretty much his whole adult life, he was shaking things up. He seemed fearless. Remember in the New Testament there was a story about him going into the temple and he overturned the tables and pews. He was so upset with a group of people that the Bible calls the money changers. He said that they were lying and cheating to the masses. So in Matthew 21, Jesus is said to have told them, "My house will be called a house of prayer. You are making it a den of robbers." He got into their face, and in today's terminology, he basically said, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore." He pretty much did this kind of thing all through his preaching career, through his crucifixion. So when I ask you to step out of your comfort zone, I'm not suggesting or I'm not asking you to act rashly or impulsively, unless you want to. There's a man by the name of Henrik Edberg, and he works at a place I want to work at. He works at a place called the Positivity Blog. And he wrote a book called The 7 Timeless Habits of Happiness. And he told readers to take small steps, take baby steps, because when you take baby steps, you slowly desensitize yourself to whatever it is you're afraid of. But he also said something that really intrigued me. He said, instead of doing something new, do something weird. Because new it's in line with your personality, whereas weird is outside of your normal box, and it's something that you're going to remember and will have a lasting effect. So if you're kind of on the cusp there, think about doing something weird. I'm sure none of you have ever done that before. But it feels so good to be comfortable, doesn't it? So how do you know when you've been too comfortable for too long? Well, if you want to grow spiritually, staying in your comfort zone probably isn't the best choice to make. And I'm not saying that you should always be outside of your comfort zone. But what I am saying is, just like in Psalms, the part of the Psalms that everybody has memorized, it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." Well, the point here is they walked through it. They didn't set up camp there. So, have your time of comfort. Just don't set up camp there. Because growth doesn't happen when you're in your comfort zone. Magic does not happen when you are sitting still. Okay, I think most of you can finish this phrase for me. If you do what you've always done,
you'll get what you've always gotten.
You'll get what you've always gotten. And that is the wisdom of Tony Robbins. And Tony talks about breaking patterns. He says people should get to a place where they are comfortable being uncomfortable. He says that languishing in your comfort zone is rut thinking. But he says instead, put a boulder in your path that forces you to walk around it. So he talks about two kinds of people. On the one side, You have a person who waits and watches for opportunities. The other side is the person who finds a way to create opportunities. And the difference is fear and how a person handles it. The latter being unafraid to risk, the one who dares to create their own success. Neil Donald Walsh, with whom most of you know as the author of Conversations with God, he says that life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Well, many of us wait until our 40s or 50s or even later. We play it safe, having never really taken a chance on our dream. But it's never too late. Until you muster the courage, you're going to be sitting at old age no further than you are right now. You have to be willing to step into the unknown, because amazing things rarely happen in your comfort zone. What do you think the most common fear is amongst people?
Public speaking.
That's it. Public speaking. Now, I am not immune to this fear. Every Sunday, I come up here for maybe 1 or 2 minutes and I greet everybody. And every Sunday, there's that little tinge of fear that grips me for about 10 seconds, and then I get over it. And especially today, I'm up here and I'm kind of overseeing the service, and I'm talking for what I've been told should be at least 20 minutes. And I can tell you that it is definitely outside of my comfort zone, but I still do it. Why? Why would someone who's afraid of public speaking volunteer to do it? Well, it's because that I'm one of those people who I'll be darned if I'm going to let anything get the better of me. So I'm afraid of it, I'm going to confront it. And I also feel like there is a small possibility that there might be something in this message for someone out there that might affect them in a profound way. You never know how you affect people. So the other thing is that if I don't face my fear, I get bored. My life becomes that monotonous rut that Tony Robbins was talking about. So I put a boulder in my path and I walk around it. Now, I didn't say I'm like the, what's that cartoon character, the Roadrunner, where I intentionally walk under it while it's falling. No, I wait for it to fall in front of me and then I walk around it. Yeah. You all know that I listen all the time to Joel Osteen on Sirius Radio. And in one of Joel's messages, he said something that really moved me. He said, God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies the called. And, you know, Joel Osteen had never ministered before his father died in 1999. He had spent years behind the cameras for his dad. And he also felt that he wasn't worthy of being a pastor because he had never attended seminary. But just a couple of weeks after his father died, he took a huge leap out of his comfort zone, and he stood in front of 6,000 people the first time he got up and spoke the sermon. It was in front of 6,000 people. And within a few short years, that church had grown to 28,000 regular Sunday attendees, and today more than 43,000 people attend his church in Houston every week. Yeah, that's stepping outside of your comfort zone. I heard a story a couple years ago, which was probably a few years old at the time I heard it. It's a story about twin girls who were born in a Texas hospital. And one of the neonatal, and they were premature, and so they were placed into individual incubators. And one of the neonatal nurses kept hearing a voice within her urging her to place the twins in the same incubator. But as you all know, hospitals are filled with rules, and they typically provide health care using best clinical practice or clinical protocols. And their protocol at this hospital was that each infant had to be in its own incubator. So this neonatal nurse spoke with her manager. She was told no. She then decided she had to take it further. She went to the nursing director. She was told no. She went to the entire organization's chief nursing officer. The answer was still no. She went to the hospital administrator. Again, she was told no, but something happened in a short while. The administrator had a change of heart and called her and said, "You go ahead and you place those two infants together." And within a few short hours, the sickly twin began a rally. Yeah. And so this is a photograph that I found on the internet, supposedly of these twin sisters. And, you know, imagine the huge leap of faith that nurse had to take. Working in a hospital, it is very rule-based. And so she risked her livelihood, she risked her career, but she risked it for a principle. She knew it was the right thing to do, and so she did it. So what do you think could have happened had she not taken that risk? Yeah. In doing so, she changed not only these two lives, she changed thousands of lives. Yeah. You know, some people would say that staying in your comfort zone too long is sort of like creating a little prison for yourself. I heard a story about someone refusing to step out of their comfort zone, and it actually cost him his life. In World War II, there was a spy who was captured by the Japanese. And there was a general at the camp, and he said to the spy, "I'm going to give you a choice. You can either face the firing squad, or you can choose this big black door." Well, in no time at all, the spy said, "I'll take the firing squad," and within a few minutes, he was dead. Well, the general said to his assistant, "They always pick the firing squad." And the assistant said, "Well, what's behind the big black door?" And the general said, "Freedom. Behind the big black door is freedom. And in my career, few people have chosen that." It was a risk to choose the big black door, and this spy chose not to take it. So do you remember in January, for those of you who were here, my last talk was about praying big and praying bold? Yes. Well, people, this is where the rubber meets the road. Now, you've got to step up and shake things up and take definitive action. We can't expect the same results from the same, we can't expect different results from the same actions day after day. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 29:11, God has planted seeds of greatness in you. God, the Spirit that moves and lives and has its being in you, has planted seeds. We must take the action to grow. We must soak up water at our roots. We must turn our faces toward the sun and grow. If you don't do it for yourself, who will? Also, it's important to know that God created you for a specific purpose. There is something God has planned for you that no one else on this earth can do. So, if you are still here, there is still work to be done. And I would suggest to you that you never place a period where God has placed a comma. And so for those of you who might be English teachers, cover your ears. Because I'm going to say something that is grammatically incorrect. It ain't over till it's over, and even then, it ain't over. There's so much incredible potential inside each of you. God has placed talents and gifts in you that you may not even know of yet. But in order to rise higher, you have to do your part. You have to, what we call treat and move your feet, or pray and take action. Joel Osteen says, do all you can do in the natural, and God will do the supernatural. I think about the settlers that came over here hundreds of years ago. You know, they were persecuted in Europe for their beliefs. They were tortured. They were burned. They were spurned. They were mistreated in just about every way. And they had to take a monumental risk to get on one of those boats. Those boats were no picnic back then. They risked their very lives by getting on those boats to go somewhere where they could practice their faith. And, you know, they had to move outside of their comfort zone, obviously. They couldn't accomplish what they wanted to where they were, so they changed where they were. And remember what Wayne Dwyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So there's a saying that says, don't follow someone who's parked. And that's my challenge to you today. Get out of your comfort zone or the known and into the passing zone, the unknown. It's time to abandon your excuses and just do it. We at Open Door are here to support you in changing your thinking and changing your lives. You know, the great philosopher Lao Tzu, he said, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. And that is what I want for you, and that is what I want for me, to be all that we can be. You've got to just do it. So here we are, back at the beginning. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and it has made all the difference. So which road will you take? I love you.